What is up? This is the Leafs Convo podcast presented by Oakridge Ford in London. I'm your host, Norman James, along with my podcast partner in crime, the one and only Michael Piagello. It is September 13th, 2019, around 8:12 p.m. 90 minutes ago, the big news. The Leafs and Mitch Marner are agreeing on a 6-year contract extension worth $65.358 million. Who cares what kind of cents are involved, Mike? I think this makes sense. Doesn't matter how much.
Good evening, Norman. We're glad that it's over with. Yeah, it was something as somebody who covered the team for over a decade. A story that continues to go for 3 or 4 months. It gets to be challenging to write that story and to find new angles. And obviously, yesterday being up at training camp, the opening of training camp, and Kyle Dubas saying that he wasn't going to talk about the deal until it was done. I mean, he pretty much said that there was a gap between the two sides. I think that what got things moving was the report that came out earlier in the week that Marner had turned down in June a 7 or 8 year deal at $11 million. I think that, because we know that Mitch Marner wants to sell himself in Toronto as a Toronto kid playing for the Leafs, advertising dollars, all these things. And that's great. But I think his ability to do that took a hit, because if he's turning down $11 million, which is basically the offer that John Tavares signed for, just to match Austin Matthews and his salary and his term, I think that had an effect, and that was sort of like looked upon as being a little bit petty. I mean, he's a great player. I understand you go into the wall trying to get as much as you possibly can. Anybody would do that. But at a certain point, how much is there a difference between 11.634 and 10.893? I'll take the difference. But in the scheme of things, it was looked upon as being, I think, like I said, a little bit petty. So I'm glad the two sides came together. It's over with for 6 years. He's under contract. Now Paul Marner can go away.
Yeah, no doubt. This is the Leafs Convo podcast presented by Oakridge Ford in London, oakridgeford.com. The average annual value, 10.893 over 6 years, 61 million of that in bonus money. Will we be looking back on this as a move that had to be made, or a brilliant move, or one essentially facilitated because, the chips were down, time was running out? Or does any of it matter if number 16 takes to the ice and puts together another 90-plus point season?
I think it's going to matter going forward. It's all going to depend on where the salary cap goes in the next few years. The Leafs it's going to be tight this year. They're going to have to use LTIR. They're going to probably have to carry less than 23 men on the roster. That's the reason you have Brandon Pridham there, one of the guys who, ran the salary cap for the NHL. I'm sure he knows where all the bodies are buried and how they can manage this. And I have a feeling, like I said, they're not going to carry a couple extra players when they can send them down to the Marlies and save money and basically ferry them back and forth. But really, you look at this, and the top 4 forwards in terms of salary on this team now, Matthews, Tavares, Marner, and Nylander, are making over $40 million.
Yeah.
That's 50% of the current salary cap.
You've
got three unrestricted free agent defensemen next summer. They're not trading Tavares. They're not trading Marner. They're not trading Matthews. I would say now, I think it's likely, not a guarantee, but likely, even if they make a deep run in the playoffs, that this will be William Nylander's last year in blue and white.
Yeah, let's see what number 88 can do for the Maple Leafs in 2019-2020. You can't just move good players to bring back cap-friendly players in hopes of doing well. They're going to have to take a run at this bad boy this season. And that's good for us Maple Leafs fans. The salary cap sucks, but it's what this team, among 29, 30 teams, are having to contend with corporately on a daily basis, and what us fans just have to grin and bear as we follow our favorite clubs. We'll dissect what Mitch Marner makes in 60 plus million ways, but at the end of the day, he signed up before training camp, this team can go full tilt with the core group plus the acquisitions, plus Mike Babcock needing to, be a different coach or else. Let's just see how it goes, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is what it is. I don't think if this team is a top 5 team for the next 8 to 10 years, this group and all of the accessories will be along for the entire run of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to change. Parts are going to fall off. New parts are going to be added on.
Yeah, and what this does also is put the focus more on the drafting and development model put in by Kyle Dubas, and the fact that you're going to have players like Rasmus Sandin and Lilia Grin on defense, Jeremy Bracco with the Marlies, guys like Mason Marchment, who could play a role either this year or next year, and a young kid like Nick Robertson that they drafted in the second round. Players like this are going to need to be drafted, developed, and to get into the NHL and play well, because they're not going to have the luxury over the next few years until the cap goes up to go out and add players in free agency or go out and make a trade at the deadline to acquire a player. They just won't have the cap space. So it's going to be focused internally on improving and drafting and developing well.
Would the Maple Leafs be better going forward without Nylander or Marner? And in return, having some package of defense expertise there instead?
Well, I believe that they probably should have traded Nylander. And right now, compared to where they were last December, his value is lower. But if he has another big year playing on Matthews' wing, I think that'll be replenished. I just look at the 4 teams that were in the conference finals last year, and all 4 of them had superior blue lines: Carolina, Boston, Jose, and St. Louis. Goaltending is going to be a big key, but defense is also. You cannot outscore your problems in the playoffs. We've seen it more than a few times, and they have one of the best forward cores in the league. They need to balance that with an effective defensive core. I think they have a better one this year, adding Barry and adding Ceci, but the problem is going to be you have 3 of those who are unrestricted free agents. You're probably not going to be able to sign more than probably one of them, and that's going to make your defense a little weaker next year. But we have to look at it this year. This is a 1-year window with the team that they have, and I think they've now improved their chances by getting everybody signed, sealed, and delivered.
So here we go, Mike. The scapegoats are gone. Jake Gardner in Carolina, Nazem Kadri in Colorado, Ron Hainsey, the legend, the Viking River Cruise spokesman in the capital city, Canadian Styles. Now it's time to get down to business. Training camp is here. They got it done in the nick of time. Michael, last words to you.
Yeah, training camp should be very interesting now that this ordeal is over with. When I was up there yesterday, everybody was asked about Mitch Marner. Now everybody will be asked about the captaincy. It sounds like that will be solved fairly soon. I believe it's going to be Austin Matthews. So once that's over with, we can concentrate on the regular season and what's going to happen in the regular season.
My money was on Nick Batan. That's why I don't have any money.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Michael, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Norm.